Good afternoon and evening everyone, and welcome to an Oz Cyclone Chasers abridged cyclone video update tonight, the 24th of April 2014. Overnight we saw some pretty moderate falls of rain all the way through from Bowen through to St. Lawrence, or more than likely just north of Rocky. Also, we saw some very heavy falls of rain out here in the northeastern top end, and that's associated with two lows, believe it or not. There's a second low that formed just in here in the Gulf of Carpentaria, but primarily associated with the first low, which is up here in the Arafura Sea. Let's take a look at them. So this satellite image shows us the two lows that we're looking at. The more important one lies up here in the Northern Territory, or just north of the Northern Territory, around the 10 degree south mark. And you can see it's associated with some pretty deep convection out to the north and to the east. And what's happening is this convergence area is also impacting a new low has just formed in this area underneath this thick convective cloud here. It's a very weak one, but what that's doing is it's enhancing the convergent flow in between the two lows. So what we've got is this big line of storms and rain activity pushing in here and affecting the northeastern parts of the Northern Territory. If we take a look at that low right now, we can see that to its north, once again, as we can see on satellite, where the heaviest convection lies, we also get the strongest winds. So we've got winds of over 20 knots at the surface here to the north of it, but very, very light winds to the south of it. And if we look at the second low is positioned way down here in the southern Gulf of Carpentaria. Look, it's not going to develop by all rights. All the models are not showing this thing developing at all, so it should weaken out completely, and the dominant low will become that one in the southern parts of the Arafura Sea. If we take a look further to the east towards Queensland, we can see that we've had a upper level trough push through, or still located in the region here of North Queensland. The surface trough didn't quite make it onto the coast, so we saw falls of 25 to 50 mils south of Bowen, but we only saw those sort of falls. We didn't see the really heavy falls that some of the models were suggesting we could see. Look, we're going to continue to see cloudy, showery conditions up here on the northern coast of Queensland associated with that. What we're particularly looking for, though, is this heavy thunderstorm activity out here in the Solomon Islands. This is not good news for the Solomon Islands. Remember, these guys have just come out of some massive flooding that killed around about 20 people, or just under 20 people. A lot of them were women and kids. So we don't need to see this really heavy thunderstorm activity developing over those islands, and unfortunately we're starting to see it, and we're going to continue to see it for a number of days now. We've got a very weak low here that's going to push into the region between PNG and the Solomons. It's going to just stick here for a while, for 3 or 4 days at least, maybe even longer, and then start to push to a south or southeast direction. Look, it's not expected to develop into a tropical cyclone. We will watch it, but even if it does develop into a cyclone, it's not going to affect Australia. The biggest issue, I guess, is how much rain is going to fall on these poor islands, which have suffered enough in the last few weeks of the wet season. So let's take a quick look at a couple of model forecasts. We can see that the low up here to the north of the Northern Territory will eventually push a little bit further to the southeast or east-southeast, and then will stall as a ridge pushes in underneath it and will push it to the west. It is expected to develop slightly into a stronger low pressure system as it tracks westwards. However, how strong? Models still are divided on whether they want to make this into a cyclone or whether they want to keep it as a developing or quite developed tropical low. Now, the extent of the westward motion is also varied in model guidance. Some of it pushes it over the top of this hilly mountainous landscape of East Timor, and therefore weakens it out completely. Some of it pushes it into the gap here between Timor and Australia. Now, if it does that, it does have a potential for developing into a more significant cyclonic system. However, once again, there's too much variability in the guidance in the longer term as to how strong the ridge is. Does it push west, west-southwest, or does it push west and west-northwest, which pushes it into Indonesia and East Timor, which will kill it? For those interested in the Coral Sea system, once again, we see that the system should remain in this area between the Solomons and PNG. Models vary how far west it actually gets, whether it can get out here to the eastern tip of PNG or whether it just stays out here close to the Solomons. This is a worst case scenario for the Solomons, where it just remains in the same area for the next few days before finally on the 28th and 29th of April starts to push away from those islands, pushing in a south to then southeast direction. You saw the big upper trough from on Queensland satellite imagery, and that will eventually capture this system and push it away to the southeast. We don't expect it to get close to Australia. once again, the big issue that we need to be aware of is that rainfall along the Solomons. So no prizes for guessing where the rain is today. Northeastern parts of the Northern Territory and central and northern parts of the Queensland coastline will see the shower and rain activity today. As we head to tomorrow, we'll see that activity start to ease over Queensland and push further to the north, and we'll see that activity maintain over the northeastern parts of the Northern Territory. I'm not exactly sure on record-breaking rainfalls up this end, but if the low pushes very close to the coastline, we could actually see records broken in that area, especially due to its slow-moving potential here. On Saturday, we continue to see heavy rainfall up here in the Northern Territory, not getting as far west as Darwin. They might see a very isolated shower or storm that far to the west, but really the northern and northeastern parts of the Territory are going to cop it over the next 4 or 5 days, as are the Solomons up here. Over North Queensland, we still see some shower activity there on the Saturday, and as we head to Sunday, we continue to see some heavy rain now starting to push a little bit west. That low should be by Sunday pushing westwards across the Arafura Sea. Just how close to the coast will determine whether this heavy rain hits the coast, and Darwin might even start to see some of it as we head to Sunday, Monday. And on Monday, we continue to see that low continuing in a westerly direction up here to the north of the top end. We see isolated showers and storms across the Northern Territory, or the northern half of the Northern Territory, and this activity over the northeastern parts of the Territory starts to die down a little bit. Showers on the Queensland coast extending further to the south now, southeast Queensland even copping a few showers as well. Might even see some shower activity starting to develop here in a northwest cloud band across Western Australia as we head to Monday. Then if we start to look further afield at the 4 days after that, we see that most model guidance pushes that low in this direction out here to the north of the Kimberley, and so most of the rainfall remains offshore with it as well. Continue to see 25 to 50 mils up here in the northeastern parts of the Northern Territory as well, and possibly some isolated shower activity on the north tropical coastlines of Queensland and maybe even the southeastern parts of Queensland. Also some isolated shower and storm activity reforming just when you thought it was dry season time, reforming up here in the northern half of the Kimberley. And some very, very weak shower activity possibly forming also in the Pilbara and Gascoyne. So just to recap, your Anzac Day marches tomorrow morning will be plagued with rain if you're in the northeastern half of the Northern Territory, and also there could be some showers if you're in the Townsville area and northwards early in the morning tomorrow as well. So just be aware of that if you are planning to march, and we hope you enjoy your long weekend, and we hope you enjoy these new, much shorter versions of our videos. Our next video will be tomorrow, and our next in-depth videos, or our first in-depth videos state by state, will be tomorrow as well for you to have a look at the new format we're thinking of going into. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.